Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. Today, we are diving into the political memoir, 107 Days. This is the inside story of that incredibly intense whirlwind campaign period that kicked off the second the former president dropped out.
It's not a normal election cycle at all. It's a dead sprint.
Exactly, a political sprint built from nothing.
Yeah.
So for you listening, our mission today is to walk through these 107 days, chronologically, and pull out the most surprising political and personal dynamics that really define this race.
And you can't really get the sprint without understanding the environment she was in before it all started. The book is very clear that she was fighting these constant internal battles.
Oh, yeah.
She talks about the double standards, like the whole narrative that her office was chaotic because of staff turnover, which, she argues was just completely amplified and unfair.
Totally. And she details this feeling of having to push back on gendered assumptions and this internal resistance from some White House staff.
Oh, yeah.
There's this one story where she talks about fighting just to get enough time to speak at events.
Because of that zero-sum thinking.
Right. This idea that if she's shining, he's dimmed. It just created this constant tension that was simmering under the surface.
But what's so crucial there, I think, is her analysis of the vice presidency itself. She basically concludes it's the only real apprenticeship for the top job. So no matter what the internal politics were or what the media was saying, she had been in the Situation Room, she knew the job, she was ready.
And that readiness was tested, instantly. It all came down to that one moment that triggered everything.
Yeah,
the first day.
I'll remember it.
The moment the president seemed disoriented, and then that huge gaffe about health care, where he just blurted out, "We finally beat Medicare."
The fallout was just immediate. Total panic. The book talks about staffers just watching their feeds in shock. Hollywood donors, like Rob Reiner, apparently screaming at a staffer that it was a disaster.
That one moment just blew everything up. It created a reality that couldn't hold, and it set the stage for what the book calls the Great Pivot.
And that pivot starts with this huge test of her own political judgment. Right after the debate, she goes to do the interviews, and her staff hands her the campaign's talking points.
All caps.
All caps. Joe Biden won.
And she just refused to use them.
Yep. And this wasn't just, being defiant. It was a huge strategic move, a declaration of independence, really.
Exactly. She knew that if she read those lines, her own credibility would be shot. She felt you couldn't ask the American people to distrust their lion eyes, as she puts it.
Which was smart.
Yeah, that refusal to spin it immediately set her up as a straight shooter, which was, essential for everything that came next.
So that sets the tone for day one. The book paints this incredible, almost surreal scene when the president actually calls to say he's stepping down.
Right. She's at the Naval Observatory residence, that beautiful Queen Anne-style house.
Watching the cooking channel with her grandnieces, Amara and Leela. They're watching someone make some super complex dessert, and then bam, the political world explodes.
And here's where you see the first major strategic disagreement. The president wanted to wait a day, maybe two, before making a national address and endorsing her.
And she saw that as an invitation for total chaos. She pushed him, urged him to endorse her immediately.
Yeah, she argued that every single hour of delay would just be filled with media speculation, like why isn't he backing his own VP? She needed unity and momentum, not doubt.
So the launch just becomes this frantic scramble. Her husband, Doug, the second gentleman, is actually stuck in Los Angeles.
Oh, because of that huge CrowdStrike software glitch, right?
Yeah, the one that crippled computer systems everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while he's stuck, she's already on the phone making the calls to, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, lining up support.
But in all that chaos, she takes a moment. She calls her pastor, Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown.
A grounding moment.
Totally. And he gives her this biblical quote from Queen Esther. "You were born for a time such as this." And that sort of centers her before she just dives headfirst into the campaign.
And then there's the funny detail, the one that, kind of by accident, defines the campaign's entire look.
The lime green. It's because the British singer Charlie XCX had just posted "Kamala is Brad," a reference to her new album.
And the campaign just seized on it. They saw it going viral and just leaned in. Charlie XCX's signature lime green became the official color.
That's modern politics in a nutshell. It shows they could pivot on a dime.
Which brings us to part two, the vice presidential sprint. So she's got the endorsement, she's established her brand, and now she has to build an entire presidential operation, including picking a running mate.
In a fraction of the usual time.
Right. A normal VP vetting takes months. They did it in 2 weeks. The team had, heavy hitters like Eric Holder and Dana Remus basically running this massive background check at light speed.
And at the same time, she's launching this super targeted digital strategy. They couldn't just rely on traditional media.
So you have a 5-person Gen Z team just for TikTok. You've got stuff for millennials on Instagram, deep dives for political nerds on X.
And then, simpler stuff for boomers on Facebook, a full-on digital blitz.
But the logistics of actually picking the running mate, that's where we get the best story. Operation Veep in a Jeep.
I love this part. Her social secretary, Storm Horncastle, was tasked with secretly getting the 3 finalists to the residence for their interviews.
And the VP picked her specifically because she saw Storm as an excellent judge of character.
And she needed to be discreet. At first, Storm was using her own '99 Jeep Wrangler before they realized that maybe they needed something with tinted windows to avoid the press stakeout.
So the 3 finalists get shuttled in. You have Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. He's effective, but she worried about pulling him out of a critical swing state.
Then Mark Kelly, decorated Navy captain, astronaut, big on gun reform. They'd worked together on the Artemis Accords, that international space agreement.
But the eventual choice, Tim Walz, he was just authentic, self-deprecating, the Midwest coach.
He had a strong record on things like reproductive rights and free school meals. And it fit that advice she got from Barack Obama years ago. Pick someone different from you to cover more ground.
But the detail that really stands out is the personal factor. The VP watched very closely how each of these men treated Storm Horncastle.
Right. She talks about how her own mother, a small, brown woman with a foreign accent, was so often treated dismissively.
So she wanted to see how they treated someone who wasn't, a perceived power player. She wanted fundamental kindness.
And that focus on character really carries over into part 3, when the new ticket hits the campaign trail.
Their first joint rally is August 6th, and it's huge. They immediately lean into that relatable coach brand for Walz, which was a great contrast.
It also had a really funny moment. Walz was so excited, so enthusiastic, that when he gives her this big victory hug, he pulls her jacket clear up her back.
And she just laughs about it, right? Making a mental note to teach him the bend your elbow technique for stage hugs.
But the internal White House struggles, they didn't just disappear. She talks about getting castigated by some in the West Wing for giving a speech on Gaza too well.
That same zero-sum thinking again? If she's shining, he's dimmed.
It shows she was still having to manage those politics, and at the same time, she had to maintain this incredible discipline against Trump's personal attacks.
The false affair claims, the racist not black remark.
And she just refused to take the bait. She knew that engaging was a distraction, which is exactly what he wanted. She just stayed on the issues.
That focus then shifts entirely to debate prep. And they bring in Philippe Reines to play Trump.
Who approached it like a method actor.
Totally. Orange makeup, a cotton candy comb-over on his gray hair. He memorized every single gesture, every turn of phrase.
So the debate, September 10th. It's a huge test. Trump walks to his podium, and the VP does something nobody expected. She walks right past her own podium to shake his hand.
Not a tactic, just politeness. And it clearly caught him completely off guard. He took her hand almost deferentially, the book says.
The debate really climaxed with that unhinged moment from Trump. He goes way off script and starts ranting about Haitians eating the pets.
And her staff had a clue it was coming because they noticed the conspiracy theorist Laura Loomer, who pushes that exact garbage, was traveling with him.
It just showed how much these fringe ideas were influencing his actual messaging.
And we get that great inside detail about her unspoken reaction. When Trump brought up the Taliban deal, she was just furious that he'd invited them to Camp David.
She said she just barely managed to stifle what she wanted to call him, and later realized the comedian Wanda Sykes had nailed it, joking she'd called him a motherfucker without saying the word.
So moving into the mid-campaign, she's tested on her ability to build a really broad coalition. This is part 4.
And this is where we see that successful cross-party appeal. She campaigns with Liz Cheney in Ripon, Wisconsin.
The birthplace of the Republican Party.
A huge moment. Cheney is there, urging people to unite on core principles like the rule of law, telling the crowd to reject the depraved cruelty of Donald Trump.
And Cheney, a lifelong conservative, says she's voting for the VP. That sent a massive signal to those crucial center-right voters.
But then she faces this huge political risk in mid-October, the trans ads battle. Trump drops $40 million on these ads designed to stir up fear.
And the political playbook says you pivot, you counter it.
But she refused. She saw it as a vulnerable group being intentionally vilified. She said, I was aware of the weight of my voice and had no intention of adding to their burden. It was a principled stand, even if it was risky.
Then you have the attack on Trump's golf course on September 15th, and the phone call after is just astounding.
She calls to check on him, and he's apparently effusive, super complimentary to her and Doug. He says, my only problem is it makes it very hard for me to be angry at you.
And for her, it was this immediate reality check. She recognized it instantly as the charm of a professional con man, the ability to just flip a switch. She says he was really good at it.
The campaign then gets hit by another disruption, Hurricane Helene.
Right, in late September. It pulls her off the campaign trail in battleground states, forcing her to manage FEMA briefings.
And Trump just uses it to spread misinformation, saying disaster relief funds were going to illegal immigrants, which just made things harder for the FEMA workers on the ground.
Okay, so we're in the final stretch now, part 5, the countdown. And despite all that turbulence, the rallies are getting massive.
Huge momentum. The Ellipse rally on October 27th. The permit was for 40,000 people, but independent estimates put the crowd at over 75,000.
And they're using high-tech stuff, too, like turning the Las Vegas Sphere into this giant election ad.
But then, the final week, a major gaffe. The former president is on a Voto Latino call and uses the word garbage, referring to a hateful comedian who supported Trump.
But without context, it just sounded like he was calling all Trump supporters garbage. It was immediately framed as Hillary's deplorables on steroids.
And the Trump campaign just weaponized it instantly. So the VP had to scramble, gather the press, and clarify her message was about inclusion, that she'd be a president for everyone.
It all ends so fast. Election night, November 5th. The scene at the residence is, at first, pretty normal. Family having a loud dinner, eating baba ganoush, hummus.
But upstairs, the team knows. The race is lost.
And the shock is just immense. The VP writes about walking downstairs, just repeating, my God, what will happen to our country?
It's just devastating. But the very next day, November 6th, her focus snaps right back to duty. She personally sets up the concession call.
The call Trump never made to Joe Biden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She assures him the election was fair, offers a peaceful transition, and Trump, again, is effusive. And in this weird final moment, he finally says her name correctly. It's Kamala.
The book's final thought is that 107 days wasn't enough time to win, but it was enough time for her to reclaim who you are, to push back against the caricatures and, all the vile and ugly things.
So after this whole deep dive, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? The story of 107 days is about a frantic, reactive campaign. But what came after is maybe the most important part.
Right. The book notes that the implementation of Project 2025, that huge conservative blueprint, had, as of its writing, 114 objectives fully realized and 64 more in progress. It shows that the political shift happening isn't just chaos.
No, it's a strategic, planned, high-velocity event.
Exactly. And that raises a really important question for you to think about. If the opposition has spent decades creating this detailed strategic plan for dismantling things, how do those who support democracy create their own equally compelling blueprint for the future when the system is so fractured?
That's the complex strategic challenge we all have to wrestle with now. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.